In this video, I'll be describing the components of Lectica's human capital value chain and briefly explaining how Lectica's tools and services are being used at every layer of the organizational structure from the front line to the C-suite to help business leaders and HR professionals build true learning organizations. In most HR departments during the last few decades, mental skills have received less attention than other aspects of leader development, such as 360 behavioral feedback, behavioral competence, personality preferences, and leadership styles. Yet 40 years of research evidence is clear. When it comes to predicting workplace performance, tests that include mental skills, highlighted here in red, outperform behavioral and personality tests by a wide margin. There are at least three important drivers of the trend away from tests of general mental ability. First, 21st century affirmative action initiatives led to valid concerns that IQ and other aptitude tests could be used to discriminate against minorities. Second, IQ and aptitude tests are composed of multiple choice items like those shown here, items that target only a narrow range of the mental skills demanded in the workplace. They neglect many of the mental competencies required to deal effectively with complex real-world challenges and completely ignore the impact of emotion, disposition, and motivation on performance. And finally, alternatives like scenario-based structured interviews and performance assessments, which are more likely to tap into real-world workplace skills and performance, are expensive, which limits their use, and vulnerable to bias, which reduces their objectivity. Lectical assessments combine the predictive power and objectivity of tests of ability with the relevance of the best structured interviews. They not only measure mental skills like level of understanding, critical thinking, and complex reasoning, they reveal the emotions, dispositions, and motivations that employees experience in real workplace contexts, show how these are likely to impact behavior, and provide feedback, recommendations, and resources that facilitate growth. It's no wonder that lectical assessments have a valuable role to play in every process of the human capital value chain. There are 10 processes in our human capital value chain: workforce planning, organizational design, role fit, recruitment, onboarding, team effectiveness, performance management, learning and development, and succession planning. I'll be describing how Lectica's tools and services are being used to support each of these processes. But before I get started, I want it to be clear that for most organizations, it won't be either possible or desirable to intervene in every human capital process simultaneously. Rather, we invite you to consider where along the value chain your organization will reap the greatest benefits from working with lectical assessments. Let's begin with workforce planning. All organizations need to make accurate predictions about requirements to enable future business outcomes. This includes planning various aspects of the workforce, such as organizational capabilities and people competencies that will be required a few months or sometimes even years down the line. Lectica can make your workforce planning more effective by providing an analysis of the complexity of capabilities and competencies that will be required to meet future requirements. Lectica can help with translating business requirements into organizational structures. We do this by determining the complexity demands that will be required at each layer of the future state organizational design. This can be done for all organizational areas, including business functions, the corporate core, and shared services. Once general competency levels have been defined, these definitions are employed to specify the complexity ranges of role requirements, including, for example, decision rights, key areas of accountability, and required competencies. We use a process called lectical role design to determine the complexity range of the competencies required in particular roles. The competencies we target impact decision-making, problem solving, learning, self-awareness, and human interaction in the workplace. Once roles have been defined and their complexity demands have been documented, the next step is to evaluate the fit between the competencies of people in roles and the complexity demands of these roles. This requires a direct comparison of role complexity and the complexity of employees' competency levels, and is made possible with lectical assessments, which measure competencies on the same scale used to determine role complexity. Fit to role can be assessed for individuals, teams, or even entire organizations with an organizational snapshot. Decades of research has made it clear that the best predictor of higher success is employees' capacity to meet the demands of role requirements. In the past, most assessments of mental skills were measures of general intelligence, also called IQ or aptitude. But these assessments did not measure what we really need to know, which is how candidates are likely to apply their knowledge and skills in real, often messy, or emotion-laden workplace contexts. Lectica's approach to recruitment begins with an assessment of candidates' ability to apply their knowledge and skills in real-world workplace contexts. We offer 2 recruitment products. The first is Lectica First, a subscription service that makes it possible to pre-screen every single job applicant in real time, from frontline to mid-level management. The second is a set of leader recruitment tools used to evaluate candidates for senior and top-level management positions. After a role has been filled, we can help you identify employees' growth edges and suggest pathways for learning and development. A simple upgrade of the new hire's Lectica First assessment to what we call an essentials assessment, packed with learning recommendations and resources, will provide you with the information required to identify short and long-term learning priorities and show employees how to learn optimally from everyday workplace experiences. Part of what allows team members to work well together is the ability to share and understand one another's ideas. Teams whose members' workplace skills are within an optimal complexity range, usually about 1/3 of one of our levels, operate more smoothly than those with wider ranges because their members can communicate with one another more effectively. We have designed 2 products that will help you get struggling teams into better alignment. They are the Compatibility Profile and Lectica for the C-Suite. Both involve using our essentials assessments to construct a compatibility profile for team members and make recommendations for action. The most commonly used assessments in this context focus on skills like taking, seeking, and coordinating perspectives, collaborative capacity, contextual thinking, self-awareness, and interpersonal understanding. Lectical assessments, taken repeatedly over a few years, can tell you how rapidly employee skills are developing over time. This means you can now measure the actual effectiveness of programs designed to develop skill. In addition to asking what employees think they learned or how much they liked a given program, you can now ask if that program produced measurable growth. But this isn't the only performance management benefit of working with lectical assessments over time. They can also be used to find out who's developing skill and who isn't, and help identify the enablers and barriers to growth. We produce a number of essentials assessments that cover several high-priority workplace competencies. The Lectical Reflective Judgment Assessment, LRJA, examines workplace reasoning skills, how employees gather and employ information to address typical workplace tensions or conflicts. The Lectical Leadership Decision-Making Assessment, LDMA, looks at how leaders or managers approach decision-making when confronted with problems that commonly arise under conditions of volatility, uncertainty, and change. The Lectical Self-Understanding Assessment, or LSUA, targets leaders or managers' understanding of themselves as participants in different workplace relationships. The Lectical Ethical Reasoning Assessment, LERA, focuses on how employees go about making decisions when confronted with a challenging workplace ethical issue. For organizations that are serious about learning, lectical assessments fulfill three important functions. They diagnose the learning needs of individual employees, they provide specific learning recommendations designed to meet those needs, and they teach employees how to learn optimally from everyday workplace experiences. Lectica's Essentials assessments are designed to support optimal learning, the kind of learning that results in usable knowledge and builds a foundation for a lifetime of growth. With products like Lectica for the C-suite, designed to optimize learning at the top, assessments and debriefs delivered by certified coaches, and training in the use of our simple and powerful learning model, VCall+7, we're well equipped to help you advance your learning goals and develop into a true learning organization. Succession planning processes are intended to identify and subsequently assess a small number of candidates who are likely to be successful incumbents. These processes are particularly important due to the lead time, often 6 to 12 months, and cost involved in such senior and influential hires. Lectical assessments have a pivotal role to play in succession planning. We can help specify senior role requirements and determine the distance between candidates currently. Lectical assessments play a critical role in identifying talent, assessing key leader capabilities, increasing speed to competence, and tracking growth over time. And if you aim to recruit internally and have administered lectical assessments over several years, we can even tell you when to expect a promising individual to attain the level of skill they'll need down the road to excel in a particular position. For every step in the human capital value chain, Lectica has a product or service that will help you make the most of your most valuable resource. You can learn more about the products mentioned in this presentation by going to lecticalive.org, selecting Products in the main menu, and clicking on any of the tabs under Leadership and Recruitment.